hearings anyway, to give other board members a chance to get here. So I'm going to call to order the meeting of the January 3rd Stormwater Management Committee. And I'll ask Ms. Gilbert to, everybody's got a copy of the meeting minutes and the decision letters. Okay, so are there any comments or edits or questions about the meeting minutes or decision letters from our committee members?
I have a suggested edit on the minutes. Indicates meeting was called to order at 8:30, and then just below that it says the chair called the meeting to order 8:22. So we just need to be consistent.
Okay. Does anyone have any other edits to the minutes that they'd like to make? And then we'll put all those in one motion if that's okay with everybody. Okay. All right. Seeing none, you want to put that in the form of a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Do you want to do the letters?
It's up to you if you'd like to.
And the letters as well, with the suggested edit.
A second.
All right, motion been made, properly seconded to approve the meeting minutes and decision letters with the edit to the meeting minutes to reflect correct starting time. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Nope.
I guess the only discussion I'd like to add is at some point if we could clarify with council and with stormwater staff why we're not recording who sponsored motions, who made motions, who seconded a motion, and the vote tally. I think it's primarily critical to identify who made motions so that you know who to call to clarify a particular motion if an issue comes up down the road. I know I've gotten phone calls in the past when I've made motions from staff asking for clarification on my motion when new information arose that might affect a rehearing or that might affect a clarification of how the motion was originally intended. If we don't have who made those motions recorded in the minutes, you all won't know who to call. So is that something we could just kind of revisit between now and the next meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. All right. Any other discussion, questions, comments? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion passes. Okay, so our first item of business is to have a report from Metro Water Services staff concerning the MS4 permit. And we'll open the floor to staff to make that presentation.
Thank you all. Each year we have this opportunity to present to the board what we've done for the past year. This report is for the past fiscal year that ended in July. But as you guys know from last year's report, our program is necessitated by our MS4 permit. So the state and the EPA issued the City of Nashville all Metro government a permit to make sure that we implement controls to prevent pollution and impacts to stormwater runoff from metro areas and areas draining to metro. So there's a lot of different programs that are implemented by our department. It's under Michael and the MPDS program in stormwater. And each year we need to report our findings to the board, and you guys are the board. So we appreciate this opportunity. But we've got it up on the screen for you in the audience, but our reports are posted every year to our website. You can go to our website. If you can scroll down just a little bit. The link is at the bottom. When you click on that link or go to our web page and search for the annual report, the last 10 plus years annual reports are there. So they're really comprehensive documents. They're full of tables and data. So if you ever have trouble sleeping, I recommend pulling one of these things up and reading them. But today I have just some highlights that I've prepared, some of the key data that we've done last year, and I'll pull it out. I wanted to go over a few highlights with you today. You scroll down. This first one, and it's probably hard to see out there, but this was a discharge that we found last year. Actually, our sewer crews had a contractor out doing some sewer rehabilitation work on Gibson Creek, and they found what appeared to be a sewer discharge coming out, going straight to the creek. They called our staff out. We went out, investigated, did some sampling, confirmed it was sewer, and we traced it back. We did dye tracing of several homes, found it was actually 2 homes draining out to this open area, which was like 10 feet from Gibson Creek itself. We worked with the contractor that was out there doing the rehab work, and we found out that it looks like these service laterals were never tied in properly to the sewer main. So this has probably been going on for many years and was never reported to us. So we're able to find this and get this corrected while they were out there, which was a huge benefit to water quality of Gibson Creek, because all that bacteria that was coming out daily to the creek was eliminated. So this one was a big find for us last year. We also have crews out there every day. Right now we've got 7 inspectors out looking at construction sites as we speak. They're looking at all these controls. If you can scroll down just. They're looking at all these controls. These regulations that this body oversees is for development, to make sure that we're not impacting stormwater runoff, quantity of it and quality of it. We also have programs in place to make sure that we're not impacting stormwater runoff during construction. Sites have to put controls, silt fence, perimeter controls, construction exits. We have a whole group of inspectors out there keeping an eye on all these sites. It's gotten a lot better over the years. When I started in 2003, getting sites to install controls was like pulling teeth, but it's much better. But with that said, we do find that we have some sites that just are not maintaining these controls. This site in particular, last year, our inspector was at the site and he saw this muddy water draining into a tributary, traced it back up, and the site was pumping pit water. He had some controls up, but it wasn't enough. And in our business, it's whatever it takes. If what's designed on the plan is not working, you have to do above and beyond. And we issued a notice of violation to the site, required them to install better controls to filter the pit pump water, and as a result, they stopped it immediately and did implement the controls, and we stopped that source of sediment from going to that creek. We have many, many more of these. I could have had 20-plus pages of photographs to share with you. That's just some of the highlights that we submitted to TDEC. The next page, I highlighted some of the numbers, but we have many different departments that we get data from that we have to submit to TDEC, and these are just some of the highlights. The first one is we have to oversee our street sweeping program. It's in our permit. But this is a very important program. If you think of all the grit and grime that comes off of tires, cigarette butts people throw out, tire weights falling off, all that material would wash into storm drains. So we have contracted street sweepers out there sweeping this throughout the year. And last year alone, they swept over 22,000 miles of curb and gutter street. And they collected over almost 5,000 tons of debris that would have otherwise ended up in our storm drain. So this is an immediate direct benefit to water quality runoff that our program is implementing. We also have a large maintenance program of in-house maintenance personnel, our routine maintenance program. It fluctuates, but we have about 40 people on average that go out every day in the rain, sleet, snow, you name it, and they're out there unclogging inlets, cleaning out ditches, making sure that our roads are safe, not ponding, but also preventing all those pollutants that would have otherwise ended up in the streams. They're getting those out and they're taking them to landfills. Last year alone, our crews cleaned out over 30,000 inlets of material. It's estimated that was over 270,000 pounds of material that they removed from these inlets. This particular part of the season is really busy for them right now because of all the leaves, and we have a big problem with people blowing leaves into the street that all end up in the storm drains. So that's something we're dealing with right now. Development and review, development services, I didn't highlight it, but I should have, but they're reviewing plans. A lot of the stuff that ends up here, they're doing all that throughout the year. Last year alone, they looked at over 1,400 plans. That includes as-built, initial grading permits, submittals, resubmittals, Many of those projects turn into full-blown grading permits, which then get turned over to our construction inspection group. And last year alone, we issued over 300 grading permits, which the numbers just keep going up every year. And that's a full-blown grading permit is to a site over 10,000 square feet of grading, as you know. And those sites have to install post-construction controls. And so our crews are out there looking, make sure they're not causing sediment to run off during construction, but they're also making sure that these controls are put in place correctly. So it's a lot of inspections. Last year they inspected over 7,200 construction sites. But for those sites that are under the 10,000 square foot threshold that don't quite meet the grading permit, we also have the single family permitting system, as you all know, that's headed up through Kimberly Hayes and Development Services. Last year alone, her group inspected over 3,200 sites. So they're out there every day trying to make sure that stuff's being constructed correctly, and we get complaints, as Michael can tell you, every day complaints roll in. And we follow up on every complaint. So that's construction related. We also have programs in place to look at non-construction impacts, reports of people dumping materials that could end up in our creeks. Last year alone, we did 120 water quality investigations, which is probably one of the most we've done in the last 10 years. And we attribute a lot of that to our public education aspects. People know now to report pollution. There's a lot more eyes. These condo complexes going up near streams, while they may have impacted stormwater runoff, but they have a lot of occupants that are watching these creeks, and we get a lot of calls and complaints. And we have a better reporting system through our hub, Nashville, where a lot of our complaints come in, so that we expect this number is going to increase every year. We did over 1,200 inspections of stormwater controls that were put in place per our grading permit regulations. These are the detention ponds, bioretention basins, underground water quality units. Right now, we're over 5,000 structures. And if these structures are not being maintained, they're just bypassing, and there's no treatment from that developed environment. So that we are expanding this area of our program, and probably will be expanding it more into the future. But we've got to get a hold of this, make sure sites are maintaining these controls. But last year alone was a banner year. We did 1,200 inspections, and we reached out to over 300 property owners that needed to do some maintenance on their structures. We do enforcement through our construction program and for non-construction related violations of our illicit discharge code. Last year we issued 75 notices of violation for sites that were not following their plans, that had illicit discharges in some cases. And those tallied to over $27,000 in administrative fines for those sites. We also have a robust sampling and monitoring program. Part of our permit requires us to monitor the creeks, sample, do visual stream assessments, see if there's any trends or impacts to the creeks. And last year alone, we did over 27 miles of visual stream assessments, and this involves taking measurements, recording data every 1,000 feet, meticulous notes into a database of every creek. So it's not just walking the streams and looking at them. They're collecting a lot of data on those streams. And then finally, but probably most importantly, is our public education program. A lot of people don't think about that, but it's probably the most important aspect of our program. Educating people on their daily activities and how they can impact stormwater is very important, and we work through the schools with Julie Berbiglia and Sonia Allman and Jennifer Harmon in our public outreach program. And last year alone, we reached over 11,600 students through the schools program and our water education component. And one of the things that we're expanding is our social media campaign, which we feel is the way that we need to go into the future. And last year alone, through our targeted stormwater education messages, we were able to reach over 21,000 individuals, because that's a great thing about social media. You can track how many people are viewing these pages in our post. So with that said, that's really all that I had. Michael, did you want to add anything else?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. Thank you, Josh. Josh has done another good job this year making sure that we get everything done that we have to from a regulatory perspective with our MS4 permit compliance. In an area like Metro and the urban nature that it is, there are obviously a lot of things that we have to do to deal with pollution inputs. This is just the kind of the main points, but there are lots of other things that we do to include working with other Metro agencies as far as making sure that their respective facilities aren't creating pollution issues. For instance, Josh helped put together a stormwater pollution prevention plan for the stadium. So we're doing things like that all the time. The other big thing that I would note is we do have someone on call 24/7 to deal with illicits and spills, so that we're like any other government entity that's having to respond to emergency situations. So that's helped us a lot over the years. We've been at this now over 20 years, and the one thing that I would say in looking at this is we are and did get a lot more concerns sent to us this year, but the nature of the things we get aren't nearly as onerous as they used to be. We used to get calls of raw sewage going into streams, of just terrible wastewater or industrial discharges or whatnot. And now we get a lot of calls, which is great, but the issues aren't as significant, I'd say. So I think that goes back to our public education, and that's something that we really work a lot in. For instance, he was mentioning the leaves. We had an instance the other day where we got a concern about that, and our social media people were able to go out with the application next door to the area in which we were seeing that, and it got a positive response. So we're trying to be more intelligent and be a better use of resources as far as how we get the message out. And just the little social media bits now and then have been really helpful. So, we're pleased where things are. Obviously, with Metro Nashville growing, it's an ongoing battle to keep up with everything. He mentioned the stormwater control measures, and so we have a lot of, at any one time, we have upwards of 750 active grading permits going on that Dale Binder's group's trying to inspect and oversee, and all of those are going to result in permanent post-construction devices that have got to be looked at and overseen. And Josh, he's taken the first step, and we brought on a couple more inspectors to try to deal with that. And we've had some good results from that. But we want, when we have rain events like we had last week, that those are ready to accommodate those type of rains and infiltrate or treat to the degree necessary. So, been a good year, but as we say, we have yet another year pushing the rock up the hill. So, but we've got good folks, and they do a very good job. The one other thing that I would just add is general information as far as our office, and you see kind of the three main areas that we do, and then Rebecca is in our group overseeing special projects, and starting on July 1st this year, that also included a tree component where we're working to try to get more trees planted in Metro, as the stormwater benefits of trees is one of the primary benefits that they afford. I also wanted to mention, just as a Metro efficiency initiative, that the Davison County Soil Conservation District is now in the MPDS office physically. They've been relocated. They were sort of a department of one, and so being able to bring them in has had several efficiencies, not the least of which is they basically do on the ag side of things what we do on the non-ag. So we've already seen some good synergy with having Carol Edwards in that group physically now located within our section. So we're excited to see where that goes in the coming year, but that's been a good transition so far. So with that, if anybody has any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
I got a couple of quick questions. Sure. One on your post-construction inspections. What's the most kind of common challenge you run into?
Property ownership.
The residential
Residential.
Yeah.
HOAs, non-existent. Sometimes developers still own the parcel with the pond. Many years after the subdivision has been signed off, no HOA formed. We're looking at now trying to improve on those requirements. But just contacting the property owner on the residential is the hardest part. The new trend with a lot of the smaller treatment, like bioretention basins going in backyards, that's a challenge from our standpoint. It's great for treatment because you're treating it more at the source, but from a maintenance standpoint, getting with all those separate property owners to make sure that they can maintain it. A lot of these sites have no idea. Our owners, they bought the house, a year or two after it was signed off, developer built it, they have no idea what this structure is. They think it's landscaping.
You think it's a hole that needs to be filled up?
We've got cases where they do fill that in, and, enforcement, some might think, oh, just send them enforcement, take care of it. It's not that easy. It's not that easy. So we need to make sure that we think about that. And we've already been talking with Steve Mishu. Kevin Gangware was on a committee we had to talk about maybe some more low-maintenance type designs that we can come up with, because human nature is not to maintain things. And as much as we try to get them to get maintained, there's always going to be that aspect. And that's just something we need to think about. Some of the structures lend themselves to be maintained a lot easier. The old detention ponds, if they're in front of a building, usually were maintained because all I had to do was mow it. Sometimes maybe repair a little erosion. Now, if they're behind the building, nobody cared about, they let them grow up and they look like a forest. So we're dealing with that. But we just need to be thinking about the maintenance of them on the front end. It would be my message on that. That's something we're dealing with right now. But property ownership would be the number one issue on these residential ones. Commercial ones are pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, I know on the HOA issue, a lot of them don't form because they just don't want to start the precedent of paying the fees.
Right.
It just kind of locks you into having to pay another fee every month. But so secondly, you mentioned that you all are doing quite a bit of water quality monitoring around the community. I just wanted to add that every couple of years I get out with Metro water quality monitoring staff with my water management class, and I always ask the credentials of the Metro employees that are there. They always have very impressive credentials. They're always following very scientific technology. They seem to be always using the best equipment. And I've seen EPA, USGS, USDA monitoring scientists, water quality scientists operate in the field for the last 35 years. So I'm always very impressed with the job your staff is doing with the science of your business. I just want to thank y'all for all this hard work and putting this report together and making the numbers real.
We appreciate it, and we appreciate the work this body does, making sure that our regulations are being followed, because that's a really important aspect of controlling the runoff, especially with a city like this developing like it is.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Chairman, that's all I've got.
Yep.
All right, thank you. We have any other questions or comments?
Just a comment or suggestion. Have you thought about working with the real estate industry and doing the property condition disclosure as far as the, I can't remember what it's called right now, the responsibilities of the homeowner so that it's passed from homeowner to homeowner?
Yeah, we record, a maintenance agreement. The developer records it with the deed of the property that gets transferred to all the owners. So we got the enforcement mechanism in place. It's just what we're finding is a lot of people, I don't know if they're not seeing it in their closing documents, or real estate transactions aren't finding them. We do have an issue that we found is that sometimes searching through the register of deeds is not that easy because you got to search by the party. And if you could just pull up the parcel, sometimes you can find it with the parcel, sometimes you can't. That process could be improved, but we had one site that claimed they didn't know they had the buyer retention. They didn't know what it was, and they went through their closing papers and they showed us, and they didn't find any sign of the agreement. So I don't know where the breakdown is. That's outside of our department. But yeah, we do have the agreement in place that makes the property owner and all forthcoming property owners in the future, it transfers to them. But another point to that is we've worked in the past, Rebecca and Annalie, who used to work at our department, did work with property management groups like Gertner and other larger ones to try to educate them. We're going to do that again. And if there's any other real estate groups, associations that we could work with, we're all ears. We need to get the word out there. So if anybody's got ideas, let Michael or Rebecca know. If you got contacts, let them know. The more that we can get this message out about the maintenance on these structures, the better we'll be.
We do know that certain people at closing are getting the message because we get requests for what are called estoppels, where on a big land transaction, they will want documentation from us that there's no active enforcement against the stormwater control measures. So some people are catching it, and we're just trying to work around the fringes to kind of fill in those gaps. But it's a difficult process to fully get past. I mean, we do have the basis to enforce, but our enforcement protocol has several tiers to it where we work very hard to make people aware. And one of the things that we did last year was we put together a GIS map that you can go through planning and see, and you can actually see the stormwater control measures on your property along with the maintenance agreement. You can actually pull that up online, and that's been a big benefit, I think, for people becoming aware also.
Yeah, and I think when we do get those estoppel requests, it's usually from large transactions, like Michael said, where there's probably a lot of more due diligence done on the title search. Because it's, you search by the party, the grantee and grantor, and if we're 3 or 4 owners into it and they just search the seller, sometimes they may not find that agreement. But usually the large corporate transactions, they got a lawyer that's going back or paralegal that's going back and doing all the party searches, and I think that's when they find them. So there's a little bit of an issue there. But anything, you guys, any ideas you have, we're all ears. Just grab Michael, Rebecca. We will do any workshop whatsoever. Education is king when it comes to this. But we appreciate it.
An excellent report and excellent progress, as is the case every year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Terry, you raised an interesting point. The disclosure statement is something that's paid attention to by the buyers more than anything else in that packet. The disclosure statement is a requirement of state law, but the form itself might even be a Realtor Association form. And if that's the case, then the Realtors Association could add a checkbox to that form. And I can tell you from my legal experience that buyers pay attention to that form and don't read anything else really in the packet. Even if the agreement's in there, they're not going to look at it because it's a legal-looking document. They're not going to understand it.
What form is that?
It's a property disclosure form, which any private sale between a seller that's a non-home builder and a purchaser by law in the state of Tennessee has to provide that disclosure form. And the disclosure form is a 2-page form that you have check boxes on anything that the buyer needs to know about the property, really. And if you had something on there, it might be helpful. It's a good point.
Chair, just a quick point. I believe when we took the initial vote for the approval of the minutes, we only had 3 members here, and we need 4 for a quorum. So if you could just please take that vote quickly again.
Minutes and letters? Or just minutes?
Minutes and letters.
Minutes and letters.
All right. Well, let's revote. Let me see what we're approving first real quick.
Just on minutes.
No, it was together. I made the initial motion, so I'll make it again. Make a motion to approve the minutes and the letters. There was one revision to address the consistency of when the meeting was called to order.
What was the fix on the meeting getting called to order?
On the first page, it indicated the meeting was called to order at 8:30 in the first line, and then under section 2, it said called to order 8:22.
You don't think I could have done that?
I think you're good, but not that good.
I think you would have called it. And Mr. Chairman, I made a comment that since we don't know, since we're not recording who made motions, I know we've had issues in the past where board members, committee members who made motions have been called by staff to clarify a motion, like Mr. Dale was called about a case a few months ago because he made the motion. And if we don't know who made the motions, who made the motion in the record, that'll be harder to ascertain what the intent of the motion was. And I've asked staff to look at trying to find out how we can better clarify what the record needs to have.
I thought that typically was in the minutes.
I think some of us have observed the last 2 or 3 sets of minutes have not documented who made motions.
Okay.
And I think there's some confusion about
Yeah, I think
the origins of that.
in the minutes themselves, the individual member that made the motion seconds the motion, and then the recording of the votes should all be in the minutes.
Okay.
The letters themselves that go to the applicants don't have.
Yes.
our-
I think that's, I bet that's where the confusion has arisen.
That's the way it should be set up.
Should be in the minutes, should not be in the decision letter.
Yeah.
Okay,
As, in the decision letter, we act as a group and only a group.
exactly.
Okay. And that was the only proposed correction, and was there a second to that correction?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of a vote, approve the minutes and the letter, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, all right, they pass for the second time. All right, first order of business of cases to be heard then is the Opryland, is that what they're going by? Cumberland Landing Expansion Project, Gaylord Opryland Resorts. If the applicant wants to come up, appreciate it. And we should read the opening statement.
Our opening statement to the applicant. If you're not satisfied with the decision made by the Stormwater Management Committee, you may appeal the decision by filing for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the committee's decision. You are advised to seek the independent advice of legal counsel to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been satisfied.
Chairman, I need to recuse myself.
Yes, thank you. With that, let's turn it over to staff for a brief summary of the request.
Thank you, sir. Case number 1 is 2018-00029, Cumberland Landing Expansion at 0 Opry Mills Drive. Parcel number is 073-00003900. The inspector is Donald Irves, and it's at Council District 15, being represented by Councilman Jeff Syracuse. The case was previously deferred on December 6, 2018 to allow for the following: 1, disturbance of floodway buffer; 2, disturbance of stream buffer; 3, continuous mowing and maintenance; and 4, disturbance of the floodway buffer for permanent SEMs. In this case, it was a bioretention. The applicant's request today is to allow the following: 1, disturbance of the floodway buffer; 2, disturbance of the stream buffer; continuous mowing and maintenance; and disturbance of the floodway buffer for permanent SEMs. The appellant is Opryland Attractions, being represented by Jeff Cundiff of Barsh Design Solutions. Stormwater staff has no comments. Codes has no comments. Planning and Greenways both deferred to Stormwater Management Committee. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Now we'll turn it over to the applicant for a presentation.
Chairman, committee, thank you for your time today. As stated before, we were previously here and we listened to your concerns, and I just will give you a little bit of brief history about this project. This is an existing building. It's an adaptive reuse project that, it's a sustainable alternative to building a new freestanding building. It's an existing vacant building just next to Opry Mills and the General Jackson ticket office. There's existing infrastructure in place. The parking's already there. Currently, the buffer is pretty much non-existent behind the building. It consists of existing sidewalks and grass that's being maintained up to a fence line. And this proposed project, we're looking to try to enhance that buffer and then create a building that can be utilized, utilizing all this existing infrastructure. Previously, we heard your concerns about expanding the building into the Zone 1 buffer. We have gone back, as you see in the Exhibit 2, and we have pulled the back of the building towards the front. And we've done that and tried to rework all the interior to make the program still work. We've been able to do that and get the building out of the Zone 1 buffer. In addition to that, previously and now we've been able to create 800 additional cubic feet of storage volume in the floodplain. We have added water quality treatment of over 50% than required, where we're treating some off-site water. We've added in pervious pavements where we found opportunities to do so and didn't take any credit for those from a stormwater management standpoint. And then we also went back and looked at areas where we could potentially enhance the buffer that exists today. We're limited with some of the areas due to existing utilities, but we try to maximize as much of the existing buffer and try to enhance it and get it back to something that's more beneficial for the water quality standpoint than what exists today. And that equated to about 6,500 square feet of additional buffer enhancement between what we're able to do in plantings and in the bioretention area to kind of clean up and treat the stormwater before it goes into the Cumberland River. We did a no-rise study on the Cumberland River to ensure that this proposed building expansion would not impact flood levels for any of the neighboring properties. And we've also received support from local councilmen for this project. I'm glad to answer any questions you may have. I appreciate your consideration for this request.
Thank you very much. At this point in time, we'll turn to the public and see if there's anyone here to speak in favor of the request or in opposition to the request. Seeing none, let's turn to the committee for discussion and questions to the applicant.
I think the applicant has addressed all of our concerns concerning the Zone 1. I think they've gone above and beyond on trying to mitigate the Zone 2. I think it's very unlikely this Zone 2 buffer is ever going to be functional. I think the compromises that have been made, the emphasis on adaptive reuse is a point well taken, and I'm going to move for approval as presented with discussion on the motion.
I'll second the motion. And thank you for making those adjustments.
And staff requests that if it is approved, we don't have the actual planting plan for the enhancement areas, that they submit that to us for review as well.
Well, I'm quite flabbergasted this is moving so quickly, but I won't make an amendment to the motion that approval will be require the staff's approval of the planning plan so if we could have a second to that motion.
I'll second that amendment to the motion.
There's a motion on the floor, approval with the condition that the planting plan is approved by staff. Any discussion on that motion?
Just a point of order, I think we better vote on the amendment to the motion.
All right, let's vote on the amendment to the motion. That sounds good. All in favor of the amendment to the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none. So the motion has been amended. So now there's a motion on the floor to approve the plan with the condition that staff approves the planting plan. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, moving well. Let's go to the second matter to be heard, which is the McDougal Building addition. Is the applicant here? Wonderful. If y'all come on up. Good to see you, Mr. Gangaware.
Welcome back, Mr. Gangaware. He used to be one of us.
All right. With that, were both of you here when this opening statement was read? Yes. Okay, wonderful. Then we can go ahead and jump right into it. If staff's ready to give us a summary, that'd be great.
The second case on the agenda is case number 2018-00033, McDougal Building Addition, located at 3731 Production Way. The APN number is 068-0000-9800. Inspector is Lee Nelson. The council district is District 1, Jonathan Hall. The applicant's request is to allow the following: disturbance and encroachment of the Cumberland River floodway and floodway buffer with a 10,736 square foot storage shed addition to the existing building, and also waiver of water quality requirements. The appellant is Alec McDougall, AWM Family LLC, represented by Kevin Gangaware, Civil Site Design Group. Comments. Stormwater staff had no comment provided. Codes, no comment provided. Planning, site is zoned IR, deferred to Stormwater for review. Greenways defers to decision of Stormwater Management Committee.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll turn the floor to the applicant for its presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kevin Gangwer, Civil Site Design Group, representing the owner on this project. This property is part of the John W. McDougall Company. They are a architectural metal manufacturing company, started with the Epcot ball. That was the beginning of their company. The steel on that, if you drive down Demonbreun and look at the Music City Center and the Texas orange metal cladding on the edges, that's their handiwork. So that's the type of materials that they build here. They've owned this property since 2002. And been operating through that. It's about a 22-acre piece of property, zoned IR. It is in the floodplain and has floodway that runs through the building based on the FEMA maps. The floodplain elevation is about 410.5, 410.7, somewhere in that area. It looks like from Metro GIS that the finished floor of the building's higher than 413. As is the area of this storage facility that we're talking about. So currently, this facility stores material outside of the building on the west side. I'd like to pass around a photo if I could. And if you look at the large building, the material on the left side of that photo outside is the storage area for their building. And it's the fat building of the two that's in the photo. So, but that material is metal and wood and plastic that they use in their manufacturing. And it currently is just exposed to the elements. They would basically like to put a shed roof over the top of it to keep it dry so that they could access that without, with the tow motors. It would be on a concrete pad that's on the surface, no fill in the floodplain is being proposed, and then a shed roof over the top of that so that both the material and the handling of the material would be in the dry during inclement weather. The need for it to be on this location of the building is because there are two large overhead doors to access their manufacturing facility inside, and those are on both the north and south end of this shed, proposed shed. So the location is driven by the internal manufacturing management that's going on. So we are asking for approval to allow this shed to be installed. It is in the floodway. There was a amendment to the floodway regulation passed several years ago. It sounds like it's almost specifically written for this issue, which was, it's in the Cumberland River floodway, not any others, and it has to be in a manufacturing facility that was current as of 2012. In the photo, if you look, and Rick, you may be able to bring up the photo that's in the package, but if you look, there's a building to the left of our building that's owned by a different company, and it has a very long, narrow addition that was done in 2013, and this committee granted an approval for the variance of that addition. And I believe the variance, or rather the ordinance, was amended specifically for that project at that time, as I recall. So anyway, we're right next to it. We're asking for consideration from the committee for that. In addition to developing or constructing in the floodway and the floodway buffer, we're asking for relief on the water quality of this. Our support of that request is currently this area is being used for storage. All the rainwater is coming down on these raw materials and being exposed to the rainwater. The rainwater then runs off through the exposed gravel to existing catch basins that are in the gravel parking or gravel storage lot. With the addition of the shed, that rainwater will basically hit the clean tin roof or aluminum roof, not be exposed to these materials, be directed directly into the catch basins, which are monitored, by the way, by an environmental company in accordance with the TDEC and EPA requirements. So there's a ongoing monitoring of the stormwater runoff from this entire facility. In addition to that, on the east side of the building, we are proposing to install additional trees in one of the probably only landscape areas on the whole property. So currently it's just grass. So it does take a fair amount of runoff from half of the building and a big parking area, mostly all gravel. And so we would add the trees there for water quality and water uptake. So that's our request. Be glad to answer any questions that you may have. And I have the owner, Alec McDougall, is with us if we need to have questions for him too. So thank you.
Thank you. First, is there anyone here from the public to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request? Seeing none, we'll turn the mics to the committee for questions and discussion.
Okay, just to restate the obvious, there's material already stored on the site.
Correct.
Right. It's stored in what appears to be wooden pallets, and there's stacks of metal that are probably separated by this blue insulation to keep from scratching the metal. I'm seeing like blue insulation panels
On some of the photos.
on some of the photos. Is
Right.
that just to protect your product? Okay. And you're not going to be removing any trees. You're not going to be draining any wetlands. You just want to put a concrete pad down on a site that's already being used for storage, and you want to put a roof over it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so is there any chance that this roof assembly would be ripped off during a flood and be sent downstream and damage somebody's property?
I don't think so. I mean, it's going to be a manufactured structural shed roof.
Since
so
it's in a
with
floodway, it'll be
footings,
properly
it's
anchored
steel.
and-
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, steel columns and.
Okay. And your comments about the water quality variance request are based upon the fact that water will be hitting a roof instead of bare gravel. The concrete will be covered by a roof. The runoff from the roof will go directly into your current treatment ponds that are monitored by an environmental company.
Yeah, actually, they'll be directed directly into the catch basins.
Catch basins,
Right.
detention basins.
Yeah, so there are catch basin structures
Okay.
in the gravel storage area, and those are collected through a collection system and then directed. And I don't know, I don't believe those go to a detention system because this facility is right on the river. However, they are discharged into the edge of the woods, and you can see that on the photo that's on the screen. And there are several hundred feet or more of overland flow before it gets to the river.
Okay. So I guess my question to staff would be, and you may need to jump in on this too, Mr. Gangaway, is since these are catch basins and not designed detention basins, will this extra runoff to these catch basins overwhelm those basins, create a water quality problem we're not anticipating, or because they're not being upgraded, they're not being expanded, but they will be catching more runoff?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same runoff. I mean, it's a compacted gravel.
Because you're not getting a lot of infiltration.
That's right. So, I mean, if there may be a slight increase possibly, but
Y'all got any concerns about that?
Well, so typically, this is all private property. If these were inlets, if this was draining to inlets in a public right-of-way, we would be a lot more interested in what they're doing than something that's sitting on private property that's going to flow into the Cumberland River.
Okay. Were there any staff recommendations for the, I know they mentioned they were going to add trees to another area. Are there any other details that you all would like to see added to the variance proposal as presented if the committee chooses to approve it?
I do not have anything unless Rebecca does. We'll just defer to what you have.
We would have liked to have seen water quality added to the to the roof water.
Okay. All right. That's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Is it possible to do water quality, or is it just too?
in this particular area where the shed is, in addition to where the materials are stored, there's a common driveway or access area between our building and our neighbor's building, and tractor trailers for both facilities use that. So there's no available space without, I guess, changing how both companies function to do any water quality for this shed roof here. So there's no opportunities for this shed roof to be treated via bioretention.
In those cases, we usually request that they treat an equal area in another spot on the site. I think we suggested that to the applicant in the meeting.
And we have looked at, I mean, there are places on the east side, if we need to, we basically can trade this 10,000 square foot roof treatment and treat 10,000 square feet of roof on the east side in one of a couple of available areas close to the building. So that is an option. We, again, propose that the water quality with the shed roof is improving. So that's our request, but there are options.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question, if I could. You speak about the discharge being monitored by Triad in accordance with EPA and TDEC requirements. What exactly are those requirements in this instance?
Michael, I'm not sure. I mean, I know Mr. McDougall may be able to answer that further, but just the fact that it's a manufacturing facility with discharge, and you may know more about that than I do, but therefore there are some, according to information that I've understood from the owner and the operation manager, there are requirements from the EPA and the TDEC related to runoff that they require it to be monitored.
So maybe a more specific question would, is the site a TDEC multi-sector industrial stormwater permittee? Does that ring a bell?
No, sir.
Okay.
I know they quarterly, they test the water, and then at all the catch basins, we have a diaper, is that the proper verbiage? Filter over all the catch basins.
Okay, thank you.
And it's a third party that comes in and runs these tests.
Right.
That was related to my question. So we don't know whether or not, so we don't think there's any water quality aspect to the monitoring. It's just pure monitoring what's coming out and make sure that they're not.
Right. Again, the catch basins have inserts in them, to catch trash and debris and, some of the larger solids, but I don't believe this facility, it predates the water quality requirements related to
Metros for sure. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was just wondering whether or not TDEC had some on it. Okay. Any other discussions, comments, questions for the applicant? You know the name of the next door neighbor?
I do. Allied Crawford Steel.
Okay. Just trying to remember that approval. I'll make a motion to approve the request as presented based on the existing use of the property, first and foremost. The fact that this will be an improvement to water quality as it exists, given how this improved, the portion of the property that's going to be improved by concrete and a shed is being used. Also, in light of the neighbors' approvals. So that's my motion.
I'll second.
So we got a motion with a second. Any discussion or comments on the motion?
Just that addition to the law really does seem to just cover this. Unexpected that it's so clear.
Excellent. So we've got a motion on the floor. Any other comments, discussion? Seeing none, let's put the motion for a vote. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee members.
Thank you.
Were you not shocked how fast that went?
We're a little more hesitant there.
Takes more of a pregnant pause.
That's right. My understanding that the next applicant is not here, or is this?
He's here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what the situation is? Okay. And so we've got to ask him to come forward to do that, correct? Okay. If the applicant would come up, please. Thank you very much. So were you here earlier when they read what we call the opening statement?
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. We don't have to do that again. And then what we do need to do, though, is go ahead and turn it over to staff for a summary of the request.
The third case on the agenda is case number 2018-00034, 2135 Antioch Pike. The APN number is 14800004400. Inspector is Logan Bowman, Council District 28, Tanaka Virtue. Applicant's request is to allow the following: allowance of unpermitted gravel, an unpermitted carport, and unpermitted wood planking to remain in the buffer, continuous mowing and maintenance of the buffer area, and waiver of buffer signage. The appellant is Harre Rased, Music City Auto, represented by Chester Rhodes, Rhodes Engineering and Environmental Services. The comments: stormwater staff had no comment provided. Codes, no comment provided. Planning site is zone CS, defer to stormwater for review. And greenways defers to decision of Stormwater Management Committee.
Thank you very much. And with that, we'll turn it over to the applicant. My understanding is that you'd like to request a deferral.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jamie Hall, an attorney for Harre Mohammed, and we would like a one-meeting deferral because last night while I was at a council committee meeting, talked to the council member, and she requested the same, and so happy to make that request to you.
Wonderful.
On our behalf. Thank you.
All right. So the applicant's made a request for a 30-day deferral. Any comments, discussion from the panel, committee? Seeing none, all in favor of granting the deferral request, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, request is granted. Thank you very much. That is the last order of case, or the case to be heard today. And I don't see any new business. Anybody have any?
Mr. Chairman, if I give you a quick update on a couple items.
That'd be great. Thank you.
We're going to try to get you a new plan delivery system to get you plans as you requested last time. Apparently, some of the files are coming in slightly higher than maybe your inboxes would prefer. So we're going to try to figure out a better way to deliver those to you. The checklist, I'm hoping the first version for review would be ready for you guys next week, and we'll double-check the meeting minutes as you requested today. And I thought it was one more item. Oh, looks like we'll have one case for next.
I like that.
We have a meeting now.
Oh, we weren't going to have a meeting at all.
We
Wow.
weren't going to have a meeting at all. I should have warned
That's
you.
never
about
happened.
I should have warned you. That was the trade-off. I got a quick question about the checklist. I know today Rebecca mentioned that you all would like to have had the mitigation plan from the first applicant. Will the checklist now require applicants to always have everything that's required for us to see so that we don't have to ad hoc request for things that should be standard every time someone comes here?
That one should have been in there. I think at the last minute, we were told that it was in the other package, and it just wasn't quick enough for us to figure out, but.
And those kind of things happen, so.
Usually that's in there.
All right, thank you very much for that update. Seeing no other new business, hear a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
A second? Got a motion to adjourn that's been seconded. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes. We're adjourned. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.